Hi, my name's Jessica, and thanks for watching today. Before we get started, we wanted to fill you in on our church. Here at Grace, we have a mission and a purpose. Our goal is to help people discover truth, decide on Jesus, demonstrate change, and deploy for others. If you're looking for a church, we would love for you to come and be a part of what God is doing here at Grace. You can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. We would also like to invite you to one of our Sunday morning services. Check out ohiograce.com for a list of campuses and service times in your area. We have a great time gathering for music, hanging out, and learning about who God is and how that affects our lives. Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you here next week at Grace.
Church, how you guys doing this morning? All right, good. Hey, real quick, before we get rolling this morning, I want to have a quick family meeting, all right? And we'll make it quick. But here at Grace, as you should know, we always are trying to figure out how we can help more people find Jesus. I mean, that's what we should all be thinking about on a daily basis. When we wake up in the morning, it should be like, okay, what am I doing for Jesus and help push people towards Jesus today? And so it's interesting because since we've come here to Tiffin 5.5 years ago, I don't think we as a church, I don't think we as a staff or me as a pastor have been ready for what God was going to do here, specifically in Tiffin. I feel like over the last 5.5 years, it's like we've been trying to play catch up with God, and we have not caught up yet. And so sometimes, I don't know if you feel like that, but sometimes specifically with us here at the church, I'm just like, oh my God, like you're going too fast, I can't keep up, you could just like slow down just a little bit, let me keep up. But then on the other hand, there's another side of me that's like, keep going, all right, keep going faster because people are dying and going to hell, and that's real too. And so it's just kind of that thing going on within us. A few of you were a part of us. You were here. You helped launch this thing. You've been here since the beginning, and you've watched God grow this family like before your very eyes. I mean, you've seen it. You've watched us grow. But most of you became part of this family after we got here, which means you're the ones that we came here for originally. And so we don't ever want to be a church that starts coasting and that starts resting and that looks around at the success that we've seen that God has given us, and we're just like, okay, I'm going to take a step back. All right, we could kind of breathe a little bit. That is not what God ever calls us to do, and we always want to be a church that's constantly moving forward. And the fact is, it just didn't take long for us to be out of space. Now, a few months ago, back in March, as most of you know, we started our Bold Move initiative, where we as a church family are trying to do something more bold than we've as a church have ever done before. And we're going to build space. Hopefully, it'll be right outside, actually, this wall over here, a new auditorium that will seat roughly around 1,000 seats. And we're trying to bring together about $5 million to kind of make that happen. And we got a lot of work to do and everything. By the way, let me just throw this out there. If you call Grace your church home, you should be somewhat invested and involved in making that happen. Okay, your family, like we are the Pinkerton family, we are invested in that, and you should be part of us making space for people who aren't inside these walls yet, and helping us reach out that way. But think about it, even if we had all the money today, which we don't, but if we did, which would be awesome, we're still looking at like 2 years. Even just building the building's going to take probably just over a year to get it built. And so many of you get it, you understand this, you've thought of this already, and you stop me in the atrium between services sometimes, you're just like, okay, so what's the deal? Like, what are we going to do in the meantime? All right, what's the plan? What are we going to do? And we all know that by the end of the summer, once people are back from vacations and everything, and the college kids get back, that we are going to be out of space again. And that's a great problem to have, but it's still a problem. So we as a staff kind of got our minds together, and we came up with an idea, which is always a scary thing. But that's what we did. Actually, one of you, and I forget who it was a guy, I remember right outside these doors in the atrium, like 2 or 3 months ago, you came to me and you suggested this, but one of you suggested it, so technically this is your fault. Okay, I'm just throwing this out there before we get into it. But nothing is set in stone yet. We haven't gone through all the agreements and everything that we need to do, but we are thinking that this fall we are going to launch a video venue, probably at the Seneca Starview Theater, which is, by the mall. We all know where that is on Market Street. And we think that what we do here, we can kind of replicate there during Sunday morning. So we still have like coffee and tea and hot chocolate and all the things that you guys love. Okay, we can have all that. We can make all that there. We were originally thinking that if we did this, that we would do music and teaching on the screen, which is what a traditional video venue would look like. But as we've gone through all the tech stuff and which is just a whole mess in and of itself, we've realized that our camera quality isn't going to be good enough to do that, especially because of me. I move around all the time, and it causes a bunch of problems, apparently, and I don't want to stand here like this. I would bore myself. And so what we're going to do is, many churches do video venues in theaters. Like, that's kind of a normal thing, and they live stream they do live music, and then they stream their teaching. What we're thinking about doing is we're going to do the opposite. All right, we're going to stream our music, which will be exactly what you see on the screens here every Sunday morning, and then we're going to do live teaching at the theater. And the reason why we want to do that, number one, is it makes us so we don't have to invest in cameras at this time because we've got more important stuff to handle. But it also allows me as your pastor and whoever's teaching to stay connected with the people that are over there. And so the plan is, and we had to do a bunch of math. We had graphs. I'll have to bring those out sometime just to show you how we figured all this out. But the plan is we'll have first service here, and about the time, as soon as first service is done, that I will walk outside, or whoever's teaching will walk outside, run out to a car that's there running and waiting. By the way, new volunteer position, the driver, okay? It's real. We need one. We need several. And so we'll drive quickly over to the theater. At that point, we're going to stagger the time. So the theater starts at 9:20, and then they'll have music done by the time I'm done with this, and I'll have 7-minute leeway to get over there, and then I'll walk on stage and I'll teach there. Same thing back. As soon as I'm done there, we'll get in a car, we'll drive back here. About the time right now, second service, I need to get up on stage. We'll walk up on stage and I'll go, and then we have third service. So it's going to be crazy. And it's going to be complicated, and you will hopefully enjoy shorter messages because I can't go over. That will mess up the whole math problem. And so that's what our thinking is. It's technically possible, and so we are going to try it. And it will be a pain, and it will be a lot of work, and it will be more work for volunteers. We're going to need greeters. We're going to need a bunch of volunteers over there, just like we do here. And we know that probably everybody who goes over there would rather be here. We totally understand that. We get that. We hope that's true. Not trying to get away from us. But I also feel like it is so good for us to stretch in ways that we haven't as a church been stretched. And this is something that I think will make us a lot stronger. It'll force us, a lot of us, to get out of our comfort zones, and it'll cause a lot of us to sacrifice, which I also think is a good thing. And for me, as I think about this kind of next step, and this will only be temporary, this will be for a couple years until we get this new addition built. But as for me, as I look back on the last 5.5 years, and I think of the 200 people or so, some of you guys, this is you, who took that step of faith. I mean, the first Sunday, we didn't even know if anybody was going to show up, And just to think about what God has done and how God used our and your sacrifice to make that happen, and just everything that He's done here, I mean, it's just crazy. It boggles my mind. And so this idea is this plan is just a way that we feel like we can continue to grow and have space for new people that we want to introduce to Jesus, which is our most urgent job and our most urgent mission that we as a Christian have. This gives us the opportunity to grow our little family here and to reach more people. And it's someday, 20 years from now, we'll all be talking about this and laughing and going, I can't believe we did that. That was crazy. And it was so hard, but it was also so good. And so if you're interested, and I hope you are, we will have a launch team meeting July 27th. It'll be after third service. We'll feed you and everything, but we want everybody who's interested to come. The reality is we need 250 to 300 people to do this and to go there. to commit to giving up their seat here so that we can reach others who aren't here yet. And it's a commitment for around 2 years. I mean, we're not going to hold anybody to anything, of course not, but that's what it looks like. And it really needs to be people that don't have kids, or little kids, I should say, around, because we don't have kids ministry or anything there. That will all be here. And so that's what we're looking at. It'll be tough and it will be a stretch, but I think it will also be good. And then someday when we get this built, we'll be able to go back down to 2 services, all of us all together as a big family, and it will be good. So the next couple of years, they're going to be crazy. All right, it's going to be a little nuts. It's going to be complicated, but and for our church, but it's going to be good, and we're trying to figure it all out. So that's the plan as of right now. Next week we'll have kind of sign-ups, or the ability for you to sign up for that launch team meeting, which we really, really hope that you are able to go to, and we'll give you some more details, and hopefully we'll have some more stuff ironed out by then. But what I'm asking you as a church to do today is I want you to think and I want you to pray about what you think you should do, and if you're able to, and all that. So we're excited for that, and it'll be nuts, but I think it'll be good. So we'll talk more about that over the next few weeks and over the next couple of months. Our plan is to launch this fall, but yeah. So today, we, as Mike mentioned, we are in a new series. We're talking about feel good faith. I remember when I was in high school, my junior year, I left doing football, and I went and did cross country my junior year, and there's a few reasons why I did that. I was okay at it, and all my track friends were part of it, and there was girls, okay? So those were the 3 reasons that why I switched over, and then I went back to football because cross country is, it's like being punished, okay, the whole time. Just run. So I made varsity, which I was excited about, but I was one of the slowest guys on the varsity team. So varsity's top 7, and I was one of the slowest guys. And I remember at the end of the year, we were in districts, and I knew that this was probably my last race in cross country ever, because I wasn't going to do it the following year. And I wanted to know what it felt like to be first. All right, not finish first. That was a pipe dream. I knew that wasn't going to happen. But just to be first at some point in the race. And so if you don't know anything about cross country, a race is 3.1 miles. And so obviously that's not a sprint, right? I mean, that's like you're running slower than that. And so I remember this is my last race. I'm like, I'm going to make it count. I don't even care what my time is. I want to be first, And so the gun goes off, and I start sprinting. I'm running as fast as I can, and lo and behold, I'm first. All right, I'm running this thing like it's a track meet, and I am beating everybody. I'm looking. There's like 100 guys, maybe more than that, behind me, and I'm looking back, and I'm like, dude, this is sweet. I don't even know where to go because I've always followed the person in front of me. You know what I mean? I'm just like, where are the arrows? Am I going the right way? How am I supposed to know? I don't know what's going on here, but I am leading the team. I'm leading everybody, and it felt so good. It was awesome. I'm like, I hope all the girls see me. Mom, take a picture. Look at me. All these people behind me. Like, everybody knows my number. I don't know. Like, this is all good. And it felt so good for about a mile. And I started losing steam fast. I mean, you can only sprint for so long. You know what I mean? And then for the next 2 miles, I was just getting passed by everybody. That's just what it was. And I remember for that first stint of the race, man, it felt so good. I knew it wasn't the right way to run. I knew I was going to get a terrible time. I knew this wasn't the best way to do it. But it felt so good, but it wasn't real. You get what I'm saying? Eventually I had to face reality, and for the next 2 miles, I faced the consequences of what I was doing as I was dying out there, as I was watching everybody pass me up. But many of us, what we do is we treat our faith this way, in the fact that we believe in things that aren't true all the time. When it comes to our faith, or we put our faith in things that just aren't true, all in the name of feeling good in the moment. See, our society runs on emotions. And emotions, I mean, some people are more emotional than others. Emotions aren't necessarily bad. They can be good indicators, but they are terrible directors of our life. And so the next few weeks, we are going to look at some of the common beliefs that many of us have that simply aren't true, and the reality is aren't even good for us to believe. So, and today we're going to kind of give a quick overview of that and kind of get us ready for the next few weeks. Now, the world tells us this. The world says, do whatever makes you feel good. Or do whatever makes you feel right. Do whatever makes you happy. The world tells us to just follow your heart. You ever heard that phrase? Just follow your heart. Doesn't that sound so good? It sounds like, oh yeah, my heart. Like I need to follow that. That's so good. That's what we think. See, we see it everywhere. I mean, it's in every part of our culture. You get on social media, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, TikTok, it don't matter. Especially on Facebook. I got on Facebook yesterday. I was like, let me just see like what's on Facebook these days. I don't get on that much. And it's like almost every single thing. It's like I don't even know where you guys come up with this stuff, but it's like, it's like a solid block color, like background, and it's just like words. I don't know if they're like quotes or some heartfelt saying, but it sounds so good. And what do? We post it. We're like, oh, this praise hands, type thing. It's like, oh, this just speaks to me, like that type of thing. And it's all about our heart and how we should do whatever makes us feel good and whatever makes us happy and how we need to do us. We see it in music. We see it in movies. I'm a 90s kid, so, for me, it's like we see it all the way from Grandmother Willow to Napoleon Dynamite to Babe Ruth in The Sandlot. Remember that scene? Babe Ruth comes back, he's like Ghost Babe Ruth, and he's like, follow your heart, kid, as he's smoking his cigar, and you can't do that anymore, right? And he's like, follow your heart, kid, and you'll never go wrong. Doesn't it sound so good? It's just like, I see that in Babe Ruth, you're just like, yeah. That's right. Follow my heart. Like it just sounds so right to us. It feels so good. But Jesus tells us something very, very, very different. In fact, Jesus warns us about our hearts. We see this in Matthew. Matthew was actually one of Jesus' disciples, one of Jesus' top guys, top followers. And Matthew actually documented this for us, and he documented what happened one day. And this is what Matthew says. He says one day, Jesus, he's out doing his thing, and whenever Jesus is out teaching and talking, he's like healing people, he's doing these miracles. This is all crazy stuff. As you can imagine, crowds of people would gather around him. In fact, people came from all over the place because Jesus turned into this like local celebrity thing, and everybody wanted to see the things that Jesus was doing because Jesus was doing things that no one had ever seen anybody do before, and everybody wanted to hear the things that Jesus was saying because Jesus was saying things that no one had ever heard anybody say before. And so these crowds of people came up, and they were all listening and watching Jesus and seeing what he was doing. And Jesus was then approached by the Pharisees and the scribes. Now, Pharisees and scribes, these people are like super religious people. Okay, you know people like that? These people are intense. These are experts on religion. Their whole life is directed by their religious beliefs. They loved rules, they loved tradition, they were all about doing all the religious stuff to look the best that they could possibly look. They wanted everybody to look at them and say, wow, you are so good, you're so religious, you're so like, you and God are like, super tight and all this stuff. And so the Pharisees and scribes, they come up and they approach Jesus, and these guys are from Jerusalem. So these guys are from like headquarters. They come up, they're like, we got some questions. And they ask Jesus, they say, hey, Jesus, we got a question. Why do your disciples, those people who follow you, these are like the innermost, these are guys like Matthew, by the way, and Peter and John and those guys. He says, why do they break the tradition of the elders? Why are they breaking our rules? For they don't wash their hands when they eat. And so these religious leaders, they hear about Jesus and they come to check him out, and they're not here out of like, innocent curiosity. What they're here for is they're here to like make sure Jesus is doing everything right, that he's teaching all the right stuff, that he's following all of their rules. And so they walk up to Jesus. They got their clipboards and all that stuff and their pens in their hand. They're like, excuse me, Jesus, we're from corporate, and we have a problem here. And the problem is that your disciples are actually breaking one of their rules. All right, they're breaking our rules. They're not washing their hands before they eat. Kind of sounds like your mom, right? When you're growing up, very similar to a Pharisee. Throw that out. Just kidding. Don't do that. And but this is what they're doing. Now, this was, unlike your mom, this was not a personal hygiene issue for them. That's not the problem. This was nothing to do with germs or anything like that. Like, okay, you don't want to get sick or anything like that. This had everything to do with religion. It had everything to do with being ceremonially clean. Because in the Old Testament, in the Bible, there's the Old Testament law, which we've actually talked a lot about recently. And in the Old Testament law, it required the Jewish priests to be ceremonially clean before God when they performed certain tasks and certain stuff. And so that's what was going on. And what these religious leaders did is they took that rule from the Old Testament that really was applied to a select group of very, very few people during a select time of year, and they applied it to everybody. They're like, well, we don't want to break that rule. So what we'll do is we'll make everybody follow this rule. Everybody's going to have to do this, not just us. And so it'd be like some of you parents out there, you have a rule in your house, like take off your shoes. You know what I mean? Like in my house and or whatever. And it'd be like your kids obeying you because they're all into the rules. Imagine that, right? Like that doesn't happen. But just imagine. And let's say your kids were all into the rules and be like them taking, their shoes off in any building they ever go into, which would be embarrassing, right? They go to school, taking off their shoes, walking around in their socks. They go to Walmart, they're walking around, just all this stuff. It'd be kind of like that. Like these guys would take a little rule and they would just blow this rule up. It was crazy. And so what they would tell the people is they would say, hey, if you want to be a good God follower, if you want God to be happy with you, then you better be ritually clean. And you better wash your hands before you eat. Because somewhere in the Old Testament, like it's there for a certain group of people, but really that should apply to you. And so these religious leaders were super into this stuff. And then, you know how intense they were? They weren't just washing their hands before the meal, right? Or these people, they would wash their hands in between courses, like throughout the meal. They would eat their hamburger. First they would wash their hands, and then they would eat their hamburger. Then they would wash their hands, then they would eat their fries. Then they would wash their hands, then they would drink their milkshake. I mean, that's the kind of guys that they were. They would wash their hands throughout the courses of the meal. I mean, they took this rule and they took it to just a whole new level. And they made it like solid. They're like, this is the rule. Everybody has to follow this. And so now they're looking at Jesus' disciples and they're taking notes and they're like, Jesus, right here. Got a question. Why are your disciples breaking the rule? They're right there, breaking the rule. What are we going to do about that? Jesus, this is a problem. Aren't you going to yell at them? They're not following the rules. And it's interesting because Jesus completely ignores their question. And Jesus looks at him and he's like, nice question. Okay, I have a better one. He says, why do you break God's commands? Or why do you break God's rules because of your tradition? Or really what he's saying, why do you break God's rules because of your rules? He's like, what you're doing is you care more about your rules than God's rules, which is an issue. And then he answers the question for them. He says, I know, I got the answer. It's because you guys are hypocrites, right? That's why you do it, because you, he says, are hypocrites. He's like, that's the problem. He says, you know how is it? He's like, think back to like Old Testament. And these guys, you got to remember, these guys had the Old Testament memorized, which is crazy. I can't memorize I have trouble with 3 verses, let alone an entire Old Testament, like a book. I mean, they had multiple books in the Old Testament completely memorized. I mean, these guys were as religious as you could possibly be. And he's like, you know what? You remember what Isaiah says, who's an Old Testament prophet. He's got a book there. He says, remember when Isaiah said, when he prophesied correctly, and when he was talking, he was actually talking about you. When he said, these people, they honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. Right? So this is God speaking through Isaiah hundreds and hundreds of years before. And God's saying these Jewish people, these so-called God followers, they're all about their religion. They're all about their man-made rules that they honor me with their lips. They're like, oh yeah, I'm on Team Jesus. I love God. I'm on Team God. But their heart, he's like, what actually matters? Man, it's far. Now, when he says heart here, he's not talking about the thing that's pumping blood through your body right now. The heart here in the original language, I mean, it's you. It's the inner me. It's our thoughts and our feelings and our emotions. It's everything that is inside of us all wrapped up into one. It's like our soul. It's who we are on the innermost, most basic level. Ironically, it's the thing that the world tells us to constantly listen to. That's who you need to listen to. That's what the world says. But here's God. He's like, man, he's not saying that, hey, you have a good heart that makes mistakes sometimes and they're kind of cute, but it has potential. No, here's Jesus. He's like, man, Isaiah was right when he said that your hearts are so far from me. He's like, man, your hearts, they're far from me. They're in two different levels, two different galaxies. We're not even close. He says, you worship me in vain, meaning on the outside you look so good. You do all the worship, you do all the religious stuff. But he's like, but it's all for nothing. It don't mean anything. As you teach doctrines, as you teach these rules and these laws that actually come from human commands, actually it comes from mankind. This stuff's not from God. This stuff's from you. It's from your heart. Jesus is like, you know all the right stuff to do. You know all the right stuff to say. But you have a big, big problem that you are overlooking, and that is that your hearts are far from God. You follow your heart, and you refuse to follow God. See, they had turned God following into a religious game, which is what religion is. A bunch of do's, rules of do's and don'ts in order to appease God. Instead of giving God their heart, what we end up doing is we end up focusing on us. And as Jesus is talking to these guys, a huge crowd gathers because the crowd loves this. He's like, these guys from corporate, these guys are like top dog religious people. They show up on the scene. Then you got this new teacher guy in Jesus. It's kind of like a local celebrity, and nobody knows kind of how to reason these two. Kind of they're like opposites, but they're kind of the same. They're trying to figure it all out. And the crowd, and there's confrontation going on, and it is public, and the crowd loves it. I remember years ago, I was doing student ministry with actually Pastor Mike and Pastor Luke. And once in a while, you have an upset parent or something. They didn't like something that happened. Well, one day, I remember this dad came in. It was a mad dad, okay? He came in, and he was upset with something, and turns out he was upset with Luke. Whew, not me. And I'm like, oh, Luke, okay, that's great. He's right here. He's free. He's available. He's ready to talk. And the dad goes in, and he was upset with something really stupid. And so he was in Luke's office, and, I was in the office right next door, and I can't hear anything until the dad starts yelling at Luke. And so I'm sitting in there, and he starts yelling, and I'm like, oh, man, things are getting interesting. Okay, something's going on. This guy is really, really ticked off. Now, I didn't want to be in that conversation, but I definitely wanted to listen. You know what I mean? It was interesting. Luke's getting chewed out by this guy. It was just so funny. And that's the truth. You would do the same thing. Confrontation is so interesting to listen to. And the way that conversation ended with the dad telling Luke he needs to go outside in the parking lot where they can fight it out, literally fight out in the parking lot. And I'm like, come on, Luke, do it. Come on. He didn't do it, though, which was a bummer. But just kidding. Well, maybe. I don't know. It'd been interesting. And so that's kind of what's happening here, right? There's this huge confrontation, and so the crowd gathers because this is so interesting. You got these super religious people on one side, you got Jesus on the other side, and Jesus, instead of being like, okay, can we talk in private? Jesus doesn't do that. Jesus looks at them all, and he's like, hey, listen in. I want you guys to hear this. He's summoning the crowd. He's like waving them all in. He's like, told them, hey guys, I want you guys to listen and understand what I'm saying here. He says, it's not what goes into the mouth that makes you wrong. That's not what goes into the mouth that defiles a person, but what comes out of the mouth, that's what messes you up. That's what defiles a person. That's what messes you up. See, since the religious leaders' original complaint was washing and eating and being clean and unclean and all this stuff, Jesus uses it to make his point. He's talking to the entire crowd, if you can imagine this. And he points at the religious leaders. He's like, you guys follow them? They have it backwards. See, what you eat is not the problem, and how you eat it, and if you wash your hands, or if you eat the right thing. He says what comes out of you is the problem. And his main point, listen in on this, is that what comes out of the mouth mirrors what's going on the inside, and what's going on the inside is what matters to God. And he drops his mic, and he turns, and he walks off, and his disciples, they point their fingers and say, yeah. And they turn their back on the religious people, and they walk off with them. But his disciples, they have no clue as to what Jesus is even talking about. They just know that somehow he won the fight, and it was all good for them and their side. And so Mark tells us that they walk into a house. There's probably the house that they were staying at, and the disciples are like, good fight, Jesus. That was awesome. You did great. You always win those. Those are good. But they're like, so Jesus, about what you said. He says, you do know that the Pharisees, they took offense when they heard what you said, right? You do understand that you ticked them off with what you said. Sometimes I'll say something up here. I don't know. I'm just up here talking, And I'll go back home, and when I get in on Sundays, Kate's like, hey, real quick, just so you know, like you said this, but it actually kind of sounded like this, and so this might have been offensive to some people. And usually I'm like, no, I meant this, not that, And she's like, I know you didn't mean it, but that's what it sounded like. And I'm like, I don't know, I don't mean to be offensive or anything most of the time, And I'm like, oh man, okay. That's not what happened here. Right? Jesus is not like, oh shoot, you serious? Right? You really think they were offended by that? And they're like, yeah, Jesus, no, that didn't happen. Jesus looks at him and he kind of doubles down. He's like, yeah, I don't care. He says, leave them alone. He's like, don't follow them. Don't worry about them. Don't think about them. He says, they are like blind guides, and if the blind guide the blind, we got a big problem. You both will fall into a pit. See, now he's saying the problem is, he's saying the religious leaders, they're doing what they think is right. They're doing what they believe is right. They're doing what we would say, what they feel is right. I mean, washing hands, that's not a wrong thing. It's not an evil thing. You guys, a lot of you guys are all about washing hands, right? And that's probably good. But they're putting some rule. The issue is they're putting some rule that they made up with, even if it was for good motives, above God and his rules. That's sin. That's wrong. See, these religious people, they're supposed to be the guides. These are the ones that are supposed to be teaching the entire nation of Israel, really the world, and pointing them towards God. But instead, they're blind, and they're leading everybody to trouble. And so Peter, there's kind of this awkward silence throughout the room when Jesus says this, and Peter, he speaks up because that's what Peter does. He's like, okay, awkward silence. I should talk. And he begins talking, and he's like, okay, Jesus, could you just explain this to us? Help us out. How are they blind? What's going on here? These guys, they know the Bible by heart. They have books of the Bible memorized. How exactly are they blind? And Jesus is like, Peter, are you kidding me? You've been with me for 2 years at this point. Do you still lack understanding? He says, don't you realize that whatever goes into the mouth passes into the stomach and is eliminated? And all the disciples, they're all standing around. They're like, okay, yeah, Jesus, we understand how all that works, okay? We understand you eat and then it goes, we understand the process there. We're adults here. And Jesus is like, okay, good. We got that part done, children. And he says, but this is the main part. What comes out of the mouth, right? You're all worried about what you eat. That doesn't do anything. But what comes out of the mouth, man, that comes, he says, from the heart. And that is what messes a person up. That's where the sin of a person lies. He says, for from the heart, it's not from the circumstances around you or the situation that you're in, or you got all this bad stuff, or this person said this to you, so that's what's prompted you to say whatever it might have been. He said, no. From your heart come all your evil thoughts, murders, adultery, sexual immorality, thefts, false testimony, slander, all of this stuff. He says these things that defile a person, these are the things that mess us all up, and this stuff comes from the heart. He says all of that in there, that comes from within you. It's the source of the things that we say, the things that we do, the things that we think, the things that we believe. It's the source of all that is our heart. And I know some of us were in here, we're like, man, well, sure, sometimes I say hurtful things, but I don't mean it. No, that's not even true. No, you don't mean them. It's not that you don't mean them, it's that you don't mean to say them. See, in those moments, your heart shows. It came out of you because it is in you. See, if we truly examine ourselves, we see just how messed up our heart truly is. I mean, think about this. What if, this is not possible, thank goodness, but what if we could play everything that you think about, all the stuff that's in your heart, on a screen up here for everybody to see? Like for just a day. Everything that you thought through. All right, what if we could play that on a screen? Wouldn't that be horrific? You know what I'm saying? All right, it'd be terrible. Everything that you thought about every person played for everybody to see. Everything you thought about that person in traffic, or your own friends, or maybe even your best friends, or your coworkers, or your boss, or your spouse, or even your kids. Or everything you thought about that person that you're not married to being played for everybody to see? I mean, that would be terrible. And while we can't do that, again, thank goodness for that, Jesus is saying, that's what I see. I see your heart. I know what you think about. And your heart is evil. I mean, our heart is what makes people break up our entire families in pursuit of what we think will be happiness. Our hearts is what makes people give up the most important aspects of our life for a career. Our heart's what makes us hate others and what makes us arrogant and prideful and jealous. See, we here at Grace, we have a heart problem, every single one of us, including myself, because inside we're all naturally so evil, we are broken, we are messed up, and we live in a world that says you should follow that. I mean, it's the exact opposite of what we should be doing. Because when we follow our heart, it always, it leads to misery. It leads us to a point that we follow our heart down that path. It leads us to a point that is far, as Jesus would say, from God. And what makes it so tricky is that when we do wrong and when we sin, like that can feel so right. It sounds so good because our heart is interpreting it wrong. Jeremiah 17 says, the heart is more deceitful than anything else. I mean, those are some strong words. He's saying, that's God saying our hearts, man, who we are on the inside, I mean, is more deceitful, is more of a liar than anything else out there. It's desperately sick, and we as Christians need to be aware of how bad our heart is, that our heart is a terrible, contrary to popular belief, guide. See, our heart can tell us something can feel so right, but it still can be the opposite of what God says. Our hearts are blind. And so that's my question for you here today as we wrap up here. What, or maybe I should say, who are you following? When it comes to decisions that you're making in life, when it comes to the way you live your life, right, on an everyday basis, who are you following? Are you following God or you? Are you following God or your heart? Are you following what God tells us in this book or our blind hearts? See this, God's words, this doesn't change. It doesn't change with our emotions. It doesn't change what makes us feel good today. I mean, this is the only truth. This is what keeps us grounded, and that's why it's so important for you to read it, by the way. Otherwise, you're blind. How are you going to know? How are you going to know if what your heart's telling you is true or not true? See, following your heart, sure, it can make you feel good in a moment, but it doesn't last. It doesn't last. But these words do. And God's given us another option. He's saying, yeah, you can follow your heart, and that's going to lead you down a path of misery and just all these problems, or you can follow me. Let's pray. God, we thank you for these words. And Lord, sometimes we don't realize enough. We don't think about it enough. And the world's constantly lying to us in the fact that we think we are just pretty good people. But inside, you see everything that we think, and you see everything that we do. And inside, we are messed up. I mean, we are evil. We are jacked up. God, and that's the part that you see. God, help us to see it too. Help us to look at ourselves and really examine ourselves maybe throughout this week. And just help us to figure out where our issues are, all the things in our heart that we need to correct. And God, we know that the basis for that is what we find in your words. God, we thank you for that. We thank you for loving us so much. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you here next week at Grace.